Zara rented a small ground-floor flat on a quiet street. The rent took a big share of her salary, but she liked the morning light and the tree outside the kitchen window. On her first week, the sink began to leak. A faint drip hit the cabinet floor, then a steady tap-tap that filled a bowl overnight. The wiring in the living room made a soft buzz, and sometimes the lights flickered when she boiled water. The back door did not lock unless she pushed her shoulder hard against it. She reported all of this to her landlord, Mr. Imran, in polite messages. He replied with smiley emojis, thumbs-ups, and a promise to send a man soon. Days turned into weeks. The bowl filled, the buzz grew, and the cold draft in the hallway sneaked under the door at night. One morning, an envelope slid under her door. It was a notice. Renovation, it said, in bold letters. Zara must vacate the flat in 7 days for urgent repairs. There was no mention of compensation, no offer of a safe place to move, and no plan for her belongings. Her stomach sank. She stared at the paper and felt small, like the city was pushing her out of a space she had barely learned to call home. She considered calling Mr. Imran, but she already knew his tone. Smooth, joking, always promising, never delivering. Zara brewed tea and slowed her breath. She remembered something her mother used to say, when someone speaks loudly, let your actions speak quietly and clearly. She opened the messages again. She had dates, replies, and photos. She opened her camera. She filmed the sink, the drip, and the swollen cabinet boards. She filmed the light switch, hand steady, capturing the flicker and the hum. She filmed the back door, turning the key and showing how it clicked but did not hold, then pressing her shoulder in to lock it. She narrated in calm, simple words. This is the leak in the kitchen. This is the flicker and the sound. This is the back door that will not lock. Then she searched for the rental law summary on a government website. She read about proper notice. She read about valid reasons. She read about safety standards and the right to repairs. She made notes and highlighted sections. The day ended with a neat folder on her desk. Flat issues, evidence. She did not curse or cry. She did not shout in the hallway. She folded the 7-day paper and slid it under the folder. She slept with the folder under the lamp, like a shield beside her bed. The next morning, Zara listened to footsteps in the corridor and distant traffic. She remembered her neighbors. The old woman upstairs who watered her basil every evening, the student who worked nights, the family with the toddler who loved to wave at strangers. She decided she would not move in silence. She would not walk out with a box and leave behind a problem that would grow. She would turn on the light of the problem and keep it on. The 7 days would not decide her fate. Evidence and patience would. Zara started with small, kind words. She knocked on the upstairs door at a reasonable hour and introduced herself again, even though they had met in the stairwell many times. She asked the old woman, whose name was Nusrat, if she had seen anything unusual with the landlord. Nusrat smiled, offered tea, and sighed. Renovation, she said. He likes that word. It means higher rent later. Nusrat shared that 2 years ago. She got a sudden notice too. She refused to go until he promised to fix her bathroom and renew her lease. He backed off only because she had a nephew who studied law. She still kept the messages. Zara wrote dates and details in her notebook. She knocked on the door of the night shift student, a young man named Timur. He blinked sleep from his eyes and listened. He showed Zara his messages from months earlier. He too received a short notice for renovation. He moved for 2 weeks to a friend's couch, then came back to find the rent raised beyond his budget. He had to leave. He scrolled on his phone and found the text that said, "If you cannot pay, find another place." Zara asked if she could note the date and the wording. He agreed and asked, "Are you going to complain?" She said, "I will present facts, not anger." Next was the family on the first floor. The mother, Hina, balanced a toddler on her hip while answering the door. She recognized Zara and invited her in. The father, Adnan, joined them. They had their own story. Their kitchen had a gas smell last year. Mr. Imran told them to open windows and not to cook too much. Adnan called a plumber himself and paid cash because he did not want to risk his child's safety. He texted the landlord the receipt. There was no refund. Hina showed Zara a video of a water stain creeping down their bedroom wall during the monsoon. The landlord replied, "Rain happens." Zara realized she was not holding a list of random problems. She was holding a pattern. The same emojis, the same delays, the same word, renovation, used like a broom to sweep out tenants and sweep in higher rent. She did not raise her voice. She asked for permission to copy messages and blur names. Neighbors agreed. She brought small treats from the corner bakery as thanks. She promised to share any progress and keep everyone updated. She did not make claims she could not support. She underlined the dates and attached screenshots with labels, Exhibit A, B, C. Back in her flat, she placed her notebook, screenshots, videos, and the law summary side by side. She thought about how officials are often busy and need clear folders. She made a short cover page in simple words, unsafe conditions, improper notice, pattern of pressure on tenants. She placed the 7-day notice at the top. She added a timeline with bullet points. She kept it factual. She avoided adjectives that could weaken her case. She wrote a calm email draft to Mr. Imran. She would give him one final chance to fix the issues and withdraw the unlawful notice before she sent everything to the housing unit. When the sun fell and the streetlights came on, Zara stopped. She laid out her materials like a small courtroom on her table. She washed the bowl under the sink, now almost full again, and placed it back to catch more drops. She locked the front door and again pressed her shoulder to lock the back. She whispered to herself, quiet questions, loud patterns. In the morning, she would press send. Zara's email to Mr. Imran was short. She listed each hazard, leaking sink, flickering lights, insecure door, with attached videos and timestamps. She pasted the legal lines on proper notice and minimum timelines. She included a brief summary of other tenants' experiences, without names, but with dates and screenshots that showed the same language and the same renovation excuse. She ended the email with a calm request. Schedule licensed repairs within 7 days and withdraw the unlawful notice, or she would file a formal complaint with the housing unit. She wrote, I prefer a practical solution. I prefer we fix what is broken. She read it again for tone. It sounded firm, not angry. It sounded ready. He replied in under 10 minutes. His message had a laughing emoji at the top. He wrote, try me. Then he added, no one will listen. Renovation is my right. You should be grateful I even gave notice. Zara stared at the screen. The anger inside her rose like heat, but she did not let it spill into words. She did the simplest thing. She moved her mouse to the draft she had already prepared for the housing unit. She attached the same evidence. She changed the subject line to urgent safety violations and improper notice, request for inspection. She added her phone number and times she would be available. Her finger hovered for 1 second. She pressed send. For a moment, nothing changed. The sink still dripped. The door still stuck. Traffic still murmured beyond the window. But inside the invisible lines of the city, something shifted. Her message entered a system where, if she was patient and precise, the wheels would turn. She made tea, returned to work, and placed her phone face down. She would check it every hour. She would not sit and shake. She had taken an action that did not require shouting in a hallway or begging for mercy. It required proof. Later that afternoon, the housing unit replied. A person named Farah thanked her for the clear files and asked 2 questions. Was Zara available for an inspection within 3 days? Could she confirm that the 7-day notice had no alternative accommodation or compensation? Zara replied, yes, I am available on Thursday morning. Yes, the notice mentioned neither alternative accommodation nor compensation. She attached a scan of the letter. Farah wrote, inspection scheduled. Please be present. You may invite a neighbor to witness. Zara emailed Hina and asked if she could be there. Hina agreed and said she would bring a notebook. She told Nusrat as well, who said she would be there if her nephew could drive her. The night before the inspection, Zara placed fresh batteries in her smoke alarm, just to be safe, and cleaned counters so the faults would be obvious and not hidden under clutter. She did not decorate the story. She would let the plumbing speak, let the door swing, let the light flicker. At 9:30 the next morning, there was a firm knock. Zara opened the door to two inspectors with ID cards, clipboards, and steady eyes. Mr. Imran stood at the stairwell, arms crossed, pretending not to watch. Farah introduced herself and her colleague. "We will begin with what you reported," she said. "Please show us." Zara pointed to the sink. The inspector crouched and saw the damp wood and the small mold bloom. He ran a hand along the pipe and watched a bead of water form. He nodded. At the switch, he heard the hum. He flicked, waited, flicked again. He frowned. At the back door, Zara turned the key. The latch moved, but the door gave way with a gentle push. Farah wrote notes. The second inspector took photos with a stamped time and date. Farah asked to see the 7-day notice. Zara handed it over. Farah read, checked the dates, and tapped the clause that was missing. No lawful minimum notice period, no relocation plan, no emergency order from the city. "This is improper," Farah said, calm and clear. "Even if renovations are planned, they do not erase safety duties or notice duties." She asked if any repairs had been scheduled before the inspection email. Zara shook her head. Farah marked another line. They walked upstairs to Hina's flat. Hina pointed to the long, pale stain that ran down her bedroom wall like a river on a map. The inspector traced it with his eyes, then followed the line back to the roof drain. He made a note to check the exterior. He asked about the past gas smell. Adnan showed the plumber's receipt and the text asking for a refund. The inspector snapped a photo of the text on the phone, the date visible. Nusrat welcomed them with teacups already waiting. She moved slowly but spoke precisely. She showed an old notice, nearly identical to Zara's, from 2 years ago. "Renovation," it said. "No law cited, no time frame met." She explained how it was withdrawn only after she brought her nephew to speak with knowledge. Farah listened and thanked her. "You should not need a nephew-in-law," she said. "You need compliance." In the hallway, Mr. Imran tried to appear casual. He muttered that these were minor things, and that tenants complained too much. Farah did not argue. She referred to the code by number and to the duties by name. She asked for his maintenance records and proof of licensed contractors. He stalled, said he would email. She wrote, "No records provided on site." Quiet facts, black ink, clipped sentences. They returned to Zara's flat. Farah asked to see the full file Zara had sent. Zara showed the printed version with tabs, videos, messages, the law summary, the timeline. Farah smiled slightly. "This is well organized," she said. "It helps the city act faster." The colleague added, "And it helps us defend the decision when challenged." They explained the next steps. A written order requiring repairs with licensed workers, a revocation of the improper notice, and a re-inspection to confirm compliance. If he failed to comply, penalties would follow. Zara felt a small release in her chest. She had not won anything yet, but she was no longer alone in a hallway with a landlord who laughed. She had turned a private struggle into a public record. She walked the inspectors to the door. Farah looked back once more, then said something that stayed with Zara. "The law moves slowly, but it moves toward clarity when people keep records. Thank you for keeping records." That afternoon, Zara returned to her normal tasks. She sent updates to her neighbors. She replied to work emails. She watered the little plant on her windowsill. The drip from the sink was the same, but it no longer sounded like helplessness. It sounded like the last days of a problem that had been named and measured. At dusk, she walked to the corner for bread. When she came back, she found a message from Mr. Imran. "Workers coming Monday," it said. "We will fix sink and door. Please be home." Zara wrote back, "Licensed workers only. Please share their certifications and the schedule. Also, please confirm the 7-day notice is withdrawn." He replied with a single word, "Fine." Then, 5 minutes later, "Notice withdrawn." She took screenshots and placed them in her folder. Paper trails, she thought. They are quiet, but they hold. On Monday morning, 2 men arrived in a white van with a company name on the side and licenses clipped to their belts. They greeted Zara, inspected the sink, and removed the damaged pipe. One of them explained that the rubber washer had failed long ago and the wood under the cabinet would need to be replaced to prevent mold. They cut and fitted new boards. They tightened connections and ran the tap to prove the fix. No drip formed. The hum from the lights was next. They opened the switch box, frowned at loose, mismatched wires, and replaced the switch with a safe, certified unit. They checked the circuit. The buzz was gone. At the back door, they shaved the swollen edge, fixed the strike plate, and tested the lock 20 times. It clicked, held, and did not give way to a push. Zara thanked them and asked for itemized receipts. They handed her copies with the company stamp. She scanned them and sent them to Farah with a short note. "Repairs completed today by licensed workers. Receipts attached. Thank you for your help." Farah replied that a re-inspection would take place on Thursday to confirm and close the case. Zara also asked Mr. Imran to confirm, in writing, that the improper notice was withdrawn. He replied with a short letter scanned on company letterhead. She saved it in her folder under Notice, Withdrawn. That afternoon, another email arrived, this time from the housing unit. It was a formal notice addressed to Mr. Imran, with Zara copied. It listed the safety violations and the failure to provide proper notice. It stated that penalties could be imposed for any future breaches. It also stated that tenants who had paid rent during periods of documented disrepair could be eligible for credit or partial refund. Zara read the line twice. She opened her records again. She had dates of messages, photos of the leak, and notes of the days she could not use the kitchen at night because of the flicker and the unsafe door. She wrote a polite request to Mr. Imran. Given the months of disrepair, could he apply a rent credit in line with the city's guidance? She attached the formal notice that referenced the principle. Hours passed. Then a reply, 1-month credit applied to next invoice. No apology, no warmth, just a line. Zara accepted it. Justice did not need his apology to be real. It needed the record to reflect what had happened. She forwarded the update to Hina and Nusrat. They sent back celebratory emojis. Timur replied with a simple clapping hands, and then, "You did what I could not do when I had to leave. Thank you." On Thursday, Farah returned. She checked the sink, the lights, and the door. She reviewed the receipts and photographed the new parts. She closed her clipboard and said, "Compliant." She also handed Zara a printed assurance. No eviction would occur without lawful process and proper notice. It was not a gift. It was a restatement of the law, reinforced by the inspection. But it felt like a boundary finally drawn in ink, not chalk. That evening, the flat felt different. The air was still, the lights were steady, and the back door locked with a clean click. Zara made tea and stood by the window. The tree outside moved in the evening breeze. She did not feel like a hero. She felt like a citizen who had used the tools within reach, camera, dates, calm words, and the right office email, to turn a landlord shortcut into a lesson. Quiet win, she thought. A long game, but a win. Word traveled in the building the way small news does. Not loud, but steady. People were kinder in the stairwell. They asked updates and shared small victories. Hina said the water stain had stopped growing after the roof drain was cleared. Nusrat said her bathroom door was finally rehung without her nephew calling. Timur, now living farther away, visited once and laughed softly in the hallway. "The lights don't buzz anymore," he said, eyes on the ceiling, as if listening for a ghost that had left. Mr. Imran kept his distance. He did not joke in messages. He answered with dates and names of contractors, and sometimes attached invoices without being asked. The building did not transform into a palace, but it became a place where rules had a presence. A few weeks later, a new tenant moved into another flat. Zara met her on the steps and shared a simple tip: keep copies of everything. If something breaks, document it. Ask kindly once, then firmly. If you must, write to the housing unit. They respond. The new tenant nodded. Fear faded a little from her face. Zara looked back at the 7-day notice that had tried to squeeze her out. She kept it in the folder, now marked closed. She did not keep it as a grudge. She kept it as a reminder of the path she had walked. The path had no dramatic showdown. It had no shouting match in a lobby. It had a button pressed, a case number opened, and a city official doing the job the law asked them to do. It had neighbors who offered messages and dates, and a woman who carried a notebook and wrote calmly while holding her child. It had a leak that taught patience and a flicker that taught focus. Sometimes, revenge sounds like thunder. Here it sounded like paper sliding into a file, a camera beep, a stamp on a form, and a quiet, compliant, said at a door. It sounded like a lock clicking the way locks should. It sounded like a rent credit arriving with no fanfare, just numbers moving the way numbers should when facts are shown. It sounded like neighbors saying thank you in the hallway. It sounded like Zara saying, I only pressed record. She knew others might face louder battles, and not all offices answer quickly. But she also knew this: documentation turns feelings into facts, and facts can call the law to the door. The law walks slowly, but when it arrives, it brings a light you can point to, a line you can quote, and a page you can hold. She placed the folder back on the shelf. She watered her plant. She opened the back door, now solid and sure, to let in the evening breeze. Zara's story did not end with a move. It ended with a home made safer by patience and proof. It began with a landlord's shortcut and ended with a tenant's long game. And in the middle, it taught a simple moral in simple words that do not age. Document first. The law walks slowly, but it arrives.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoy the story, please hit the like button, subscribe, and click the bell icon. Comment below for more stories like this. Your support means the world to us.